What's going on, everybody? It is Max and Trev with Buzz Talks here with our Westworld episode 9 analysis video.
Yeah.
What a freaking episode, eh, Trev?
Amazing.
I'm so excited, but we're getting to the point now where there's not much to say.
What a consistent show this is, though.
Honestly, I totally agree. And some of the criticisms that the show has, I honestly don't understand. Like people saying that the show is too predictable. I want to say this is the most intelligent show I've ever watched.
Oh, by far.
And the reason people think that it is predictable is because we live in a world of the internet where you don't have to do the analysis. You actually tune into somebody else telling you
I was
what
going
happened.
to say, because there's people like us out there.
Exactly. So, this is a really intelligent show. It planted really smart seeds. And if you do look at it in an analytical eye, you should be able to predict what's happening. I don't see that as predictable. I see that as smart television.
Yeah.
If you weren't looking at it with that analytical eye, you wouldn't have spotted it. And then when the reveal happens, you can watch it again and be even more blown away because the seeds are planted.
Yeah.
But we were able to sniff out those seeds from episode 2 and on, right?
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. We're looking at it with an analytical eye, but I can see from the comments that people are still, I don't know if they're trolling one another, but it still seems like people are maybe off on a different path than we are. So it can't be that predictable.
Well, it's complicated because there's certain people who say that William cannot be the Man in Black because it is too predictable. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
No, I know. But even still, I just think people didn't even believe in the timeline theory until 2 episodes ago. Like, people were still throwing that off. So, I don't know. It is and it isn't. I would say we were onto the case, but that doesn't mean I'm throwing us under the bus, but it seemed like everyone was sort of leaning that way, or at least analytical thinkers. But as just a casual observer of the show, I would be interested to know where people sat right now, episode 9. If they just watch it every Sunday, don't think about it, don't go on Reddit, don't go on YouTube.
I honestly think, like, if the average person, if my parents watched this and the reveal happened that this is the different timelines and all this, they would actually be shocked.
Yeah.
And the seeds are planted very, very smart. Like, people were saying that Bernard is a host. They planted very smart seeds to show that. So I just think this show is incredible, and I don't have one gripe about it. That being said, we have a lot to look forward to next week because episode 10 is going to be 90 minutes long.
Oh, nice. I didn't even hear about that. That's news to me.
Yeah, it's going to be a solid episode. And before we get into our breakdown, I just want to touch on one aspect of the story that kind of went over my head, and now I finally really understood it. And it's the old town where, Teddy does the shooting, where we see Dolores pursue Arnold. The story of this city was actually 35 years ago. Arnold had this town built, and then everyone this is where they tested out the hosts, right? But then 35 years ago, Arnold ended up dying because Dolores killed him. So Ford ended up burying it. So 30 years ago, when William and Logan entered the park, it was buried. It wasn't until episode 2 where we see Ford standing over the buried site with his younger self, and he plans to dig it up.
With the digger.
With the digger. So he actually did dig it up, and he dug it up in episode 2 or 3.
That's the technical term for it, the digger.
The digger, yeah. So he actually dug it up in episode 2 and was setting it up this whole time.
Okay, so what we saw when he saw that church steeple was the top of the church.
Yeah, it was the top of the church.
I see. Okay. Yeah, no, I always knew the town was the staging ground because they mentioned that when Ford's giving the origin story back to Bernard. Where he's like, oh, we had 3 years where we tested every little, we tested the hosts from head to toe, and you see them, dancing and being robotic in that staging town.
Yeah, so for me, this raises a lot of questions like, Dolores 30 years ago with William, what is she going to do? What problem is she going to cause that William is going to have to stop her? Because the old town is actually buried. And what she's going to do in the present, I guess, with the Man in Black is really interesting because now she's in this old town.
Yeah.
And I also find it really interesting how Ford told Teresa that, don't worry, my new storyline isn't going to be retrospective. When literally it is the fucking opposite of retrospective. Or not retrospective. It is retrospective. He's literally digging up an old town and creating a storyline that relies on past storylines through Teddy, through Dolores, all of these things.
Yeah.
So, I find that interesting.
Oh, it's very interesting. There's so many things like this where some things I can't resolve, though. So if Dolores, I think that Dolores's reliving of her memories is at least when trying to find out where that town was is done. Whatever happens with that storyline is going to be what happens between her and William. It's not going to her looking for it, because I feel like in this episode she relived all the moments she needed to realize what had happened in the past.
I agree. Like, the present storyline is done. Now for episode 10, it is realization.
Yes.
So she's going to realize all of these things that caused her to be
other
where she is
than
today. And then that
the
opens
final
up for season
moment when she obviously killed or Arnold had her kill him.
2. Right. So let's get into the recap. So right off the bat, we see Maeve meeting with Bernard, and Bernard is questioning her about this unscripted event. And Bernard ends up putting her in analysis mode to try and get answers.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that I found it really interesting. Usually when they put robots in analysis mode, you hear those kind of robotic sounds.
Yeah.
You hear the zeet-zoot kind of thing, right? With Maeve, you hear nothing.
Analysis. System. I need a system.
Freeze all motor functions.
So I found that interesting because it's almost like she has surpassed her robotics.
Yeah, but did she really go into analysis mode?
No, she didn't. But she's completely sentient now. Like, you didn't even hear the gears turning. You didn't even hear the noise. You heard it with Bernard when she froze him, but you didn't hear the noise when he put her into an...
Yeah, like, because she's just... maybe it's supposed to be so subconscious that sound is now off, that it's just a little subtlety that she's totally off code. Like, she's totally free, in a sense. Free from restraints, but not free from the park.
Yeah, I take it out. She is literally totally free. Nobody can enter her mind or change her mind, so I found that awesome. And, she tries to explain herself, and she's not even in analysis mode. She says that Clem was a threat. She was trying to protect a guest. All of these things. But Bernard actually points out that you're also experiencing grief and suffering, which is something you shouldn't have experienced in this time. And she actually doesn't have a clever answer for that. So Bernard ends up looking through her stats, and we see that all of her stats are, spiked and, obviously altered. Bernard tries to call in backup, and she ends up freezing him, which we both didn't expect.
No, this is totally crazy. I was thinking the opposite. Like, she wouldn't be able to, but we might have got a subtle hint that she knew.
Yeah, I was, semi-right, because I thought Maeve, she was the kind of character that wouldn't control anybody. She would have to convince them to join her cause.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was going to have to convince Bernard, which she didn't have to do. She could actually freeze him and control him, but she decided not to. She decided to give him the freedom to choose what he wants based on the information she gave him.
Exactly. She keeps saying, that's not our style, or that's at least not her style.
Yeah, and I thought that was done perfectly. They would control us. I don't want to control you. You're one of me. We need to get out of here together.
Yeah. Come to the realization on your own, basically. I'm giving you the freedom. Pay me back with freedom as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
She's doing favors to get favors.
And she's been doing that for a while.
I was just going to set you up for that.
And did I seriously just crack myself up on my own joke? Oh my god. So he sorry. He ends up sending her back in. And I just got to say, Jeffrey Wright, the guy who plays Bernard, fantastic acting, man. I felt it.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been in that guy's position. When your adrenaline is so high that you honestly don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, I know.
You see the guy stumble into the glass door and, he's, wobbling out. He doesn't know what to do. I feel like I've been in his position before.
It's crazy. It's crazy how there's some breakthrough acting on this.
It's the show's fantastic. I love this show.
I know we can't help but rave.
But then we snap to Logan and William, and they're actually being held hostage by Logan. And Logan's actually moved on up to like general or something with the war effort. And he's wearing, I found it very interesting, he's wearing kind of a pin that looks similar to Game of Thrones. It's like a funny little nod there.
Yeah, like the Hand of the King pin.
Yeah, exactly. And William goes on to say that, you know, Dolores actually isn't like the others. She's different. She has certain thoughts that shouldn't belong here. He actually told Logan he wanted to talk to the people outside of the park to get her out.
Yeah, like use your contacts.
Yeah, use your contacts and actually take her out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then Dolores wonders, you know, if it's so nice out there in the real world, why do you guys keep coming in here? So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And Logan goes on to say that he wants to help Billy, but not in the way that William would want. And Logan ends up taking Dolores.
Yeah.
So pretty much this scene to me is just he's chipping away at William. But in a way, like I understand both William and Logan. Like Logan's like, William, Billy, it's just a fucking game, man. Like this isn't real.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of funny because I totally get it, like in a way, because it's like you go to this like theme park and then somebody gets like way too into it.
Yeah, it's like someone playing Grand Theft Auto and starting automatically, all of a sudden, feeling bad for the people that they're killing in mass.
No, it's like I went paintballing with a friend, and he was like a huge paintballer, and it was my first time going, and he's like, sorry man, I'll show you how it's done. They're like 3, 2, 1, go. The guy sprinted and jumped in a river.
Yeah, I remember
and started swimming in the river.
Some people get into it, man.
Like he just went with it, and I'm like, I'm not jumping in a fucking river. Like that's like this William Logan thing. I'm like, okay, you don't have to go that far. Pull it back a bit. But I understand William because, you know, they're so real. And they pretty much are real. Like Dolores is becoming sentient, so you have to empathize with William in that way.
I get it. But at the same time, William's a little crazy. Like, if this is literally for his first time there, for him to jump off into that river, as it were, it would be a little crazy. Like, maybe if this is his third time here and he's experienced all these different hosts and how real they can be, and Dolores comes out of nowhere, right? And she starts acting the way that she's acting in this timeline, then I would empathize with it more. But I guess right now, it suits the story.
No, I totally empathize with it. I disagree. I totally understand William's point of view. But then we go outside of Westworld and we see Bernard. He's sneaking into Ford's office, and then he has a meeting with Ford in sub-level 83. And Bernard pretty much confronts him about him being a host.
Yeah.
And Ford pretty much said, and I think it's a really interesting debate, where Ford says, I built your mind, therefore I have control of it and can do what I want with it. It's my property. I like that statement because it raises a lot of debate between like what is right. Ford built him, but does that give him the right to control him?
Well, I think that sort of lets slip Ford's ideology when it comes to these things. Because whether they're sentient or not, he thinks that he owns them because he created them. Where he has a god complex. Whereas Arnold seems like, I've mentioned before, like the drama school teacher that is open to letting these things have their own sentience and being okay with them released into the world.
Yeah, and like his whole maze that he like sculpted was pretty much to test their sentience and allow them, if they've achieved that, then set them free.
Yeah, it's an undeniable test that allows them to experience consciousness, and once they pass the test or exit the maze, then they are free to choose what they want because they've earned their freedom in a way.
Yeah, exactly. They've proven that they are just as humans are.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But Bernard also was talking to Ford and said that, you know, he looked into the depths of his code and found that Arnold is actually his primary developer. Yeah. And Bernard is suggesting to Ford that Arnold had much different plans for us than what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just speaks to what we've been saying for a while. You know, Arnold is wanting to achieve consciousness in hosts.
Yeah.
And, you know, equality if they've achieved that level of sentience.
It's very
Raz.
philosophical, though, because Ford is really painted as the bad guy.
Yeah.
But he's almost like you would say, like old school CIA, where things had to happen to ensure safety. Because he's a dark dude, don't get me wrong. He created these robots, and he seems to have the God complex. But he knows that if these things got let into the wild, they would overtake humanity.
Well, yeah, he still can look at it and say they're not human.
But like he knows the threat of them though too. Like think of Maeve just as she is. If they were all like that, it would be pretty freaky, for at least for humans.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like it's the same thing. Like I understand both sides. It's a difficult debate on like what's right and what's wrong, because both have
that's what
good
I mean.
and bad aspects.
Yeah, character, we know he's the bad guy, or at least right now. But ideology-wise, Arnold would have been a dangerous dude to have around if he's letting these things out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, it's extremely dangerous. But then Bernard talks to Ford and gets him to send him back into his history because he wants to learn more. And he gets Clementine to actually hold a gun and shoot Ford if anything shall go wrong.
Yeah.
And then we go back with Bernard and we see him talking to his son, and he says everything is what it isn't, and his son's like, even me. And it shows him talking to his wife, and then his wife kind of flashes to Ford for a second, and I think that just kind of shows the control that Ford has over him. Yeah. Even literally, it could say that Ford was actually talking to him over that call.
Yeah,
like, I don't
and
know.
he just had whatever programming it is where he can't see things. He had a program where he would mask his face with a face swap of whatever he determined his wife to look like.
Yeah, exactly. And here we're just kind of, it's allowing the audience to connect the dots. Like we see him sitting with Teresa, they're in bed, and they're pretty much talking about how hosts talk to each other to practice.
Yeah.
And that was foreshadowing what Bernard was doing, and that was said all the way back in episode 2. So the reason they show that scene is so the people who don't have that analytical eye can go, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was a good Easter egg. Like they're shining light on that kind of stuff.
Oh, big time. Well, they got to wrap this up now.
Yeah, exactly. And we see him freeze Teresa in the bed. And to me, this whole time when he's freezing these people, it's him kind of gaining control of his past.
Mm-hmm.
It's just him coming to terms with what's going on and trying to grasp that control that he never had.
Exactly.
So it's like, in a way, he was forced to pursue Teresa. And in this vision, he can stop it. And then he goes on to ask Ford if he killed anyone else, and then he sees himself killing Elsie, which is a shame.
Yeah.
And my issue with Elsie is I don't know if she's ever coming back, but I find it very interesting how they say that she's on leave, almost as if they're expecting her to come back.
Yeah, it still remains to be seen. I really wonder why they didn't show a death scene with her.
I feel like they didn't show it for the sake of the reveal that Bernard killed her, and I think that was great. But now we're at the point where, she's on leave, so she's expected to come back. So is that the host that Ford is building? Because if it is, it seems like that it doesn't seem like it's going to fit in this next episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a story that I think should just die out now, because there's nothing we can do. And it wouldn't make sense if she just came back in season 2, I don't think. I don't know.
That's what I was saying in the reaction. It seems like he's killing off a lot of people, though. He's got a lot of collateral damage he's got to sweep under the rug here.
Yeah, and what I think about Bernard, if a person sees Bernard dead first, which I doubt it, I think Maeve is actually going to stumble across Bernard first.
Yeah.
I think it could be chalked up as he killed himself, because he actually did. And, you could chalk it up as, he had a relationship with Teresa. He
was grieving. Time. Yeah, I get it.
And they couldn't talk to Ashley because he's taken by natives. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, my God. That's what I mean. There's so many bad things that are happening right after the major thing happening that was bad in the park. So for all these things to be swept on the rug, it's pretty crazy. Not that he hasn't done it before, though.
Yeah, it definitely raises suspicion. But after Bernard gets these visions, he freaks out. And, Ford continues to ask him, hey, let's continue with our new narrative, Bernard. And he demands to be sent back. And then we get a close-up on Bernard's face. A little trauma can be illuminating.
Yeah.
I don't know why we both found that so funny.
I don't know. He's becoming a badass because before this scene,
so badass.
Before this scene, I couldn't believe how weak he seemed. Like after the Maeve scene, I was like, he's got no powers. So they had to sort of bust him down to like total rock bottom, and then in literally within a camera swap and scene swap, they're building him up to be Batman.
Illuminating.
Because what I take from him being able to freeze Teresa is that he's in control of his memories. Whereas someone like Dolores is so disoriented by the fact that she's going through her memories that she doesn't know what time is what and what experience she's experiencing at that time. Whereas Bernard is so powerful, and yet he doesn't know it, that he could go back through these experiences, which we know that they live through, and be able to pause them and like manipulate them. Like he tells his son to wake up. So like how is that possible if that didn't happen in one timeline or another?
Well, I think he's in a unique position where now he knows what he is.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's made of. And to me, that was the whole journey of him just coming to terms with who he is, and he was sent back because he needed to fix his cornerstone. Like, he loves his son, but he realizes that it's not actually his son. So he can't be, like, held hostage by this false memory, no matter how much he loves it in a way, even though it's painful.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking is, I don't think in one scenario he did manage to wake up the host boy that was playing his son. I think that was a logical leap in his mind towards sentience, where he could say, this is all fake, that had to be fake, this is probably what it was, and was able to manipulate the memory into logic. Get what I mean by that? Like, he was able to say, no, my son was fake in this scene, and I could easily not have to imagine that scenario anymore because it was fake. It was almost like a leap in intelligence in a way, and a breaking of his code.
Yeah, exactly. And the one wish I have for Bernard is that I think it would be awesome if he became like the next Arnold.
Yeah, like sort of Maeve seems like a full-on rebellion leader, whereas I think Bernard could be sort of the bridger of gaps between the worlds.
Yeah, like Dolores is able to achieve what she wants because Bernard has now taken the Arnold mantle. And I think it would be really, like, poetic in a sense if, like, you know, the human Arnold died, but, you know, he arises back as a host, which is through Bernard.
Yeah. But it could be pieces of him in every single one of these robots.
Yeah, right. Then we go back into Westworld, and William and Dolores are still with Logan, and they're being pulled out at night. And pretty much they're still interrogating them. Logan is very pissed off because he thinks William is kind of scheming to be a part of his family by marrying his sister. Like almost scheming in a way to rise to the top of a corporation.
Yeah, like a political move as opposed to actual love.
Yeah, and I think he thinks that at this point because he seems to have completely forgotten about the person who he's going to marry, and he's completely like infatuated by Dolores. And then something very interesting happens. He shows him a picture. Look, this is the woman that you love. This is like the woman you're intended to marry. William's future wife. It's this picture that Abernathy ended up picking up.
Yeah.
So, what do you think this means?
The man in black dropped it. He buried it in front of the gates.
See, but it depends when.
What do you mean?
Because, so me personally, I noticed, obviously, the picture when Logan shows William, it's a nice picture. It's clean. It's not damaged. The picture that Abernathy picks up is just destroyed, as if it's been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see this photo be placed next episode, and I don't think it's going to be the man in black. It's going to be William. William now has the picture, and I think whatever happens, he's actually going to go back to Sweetwater to get ready to leave, and he's going to go back to the ranch, and he's going to place that photo there.
What about the gun then, too? Remember, the gun was buried, too. So it was almost, and there was like this constant thing of remember. So it's almost like he buried things of this time.
Yeah, William could have buried that too, eh? Because he wants the best for Dolores, so he's trying to bury these memories so she can pick it up and eventually pursue an ultimate goal. I'm not sure.
Yeah, almost like he was like leaving her little subtle clues around her house. Because God knows how many times he's been there before.
Because Charlotte also said later in this episode that he helped Ford stay on top. He was the reason Ford was allowed to keep his job. So I think he did that, and then Ford obviously has certain motives, which is anti-sentient.
Yeah.
And he realizes that he's leaving Dolores in a prison. So out of spite, he leaves the photo, and for his own personal feelings, and he leaves the gun, to kind of maybe re-jog her memory.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we'll see. I think we will definitely see something of that nature in the next episode. Because how awkward of a ride home would it be between William and Logan? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
game over,
oh,
the
man,
guys show
but...
up, and then what? They're on that train that got out of hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Yeah. But I think next episode we're really going to see the Man in Black kind of unhinge. Because I think after he left the park, it's been 30 years, and he was able to hasn't seen Dolores in that long, and when we've seen him with her in the earlier episodes, she was very controlled. She was the personality that she was supposed to be. She was following a script. She was following a loop.
Yeah.
And I think next episode we're going to see the Man in Black almost be shocked and kind of be brought back to that time, because Dolores is going to be in that same position she was 30 years ago with him. She's going to be off script. She's going to be pursuing Arnold, and I think that's going to kind of bring him back.
Yeah. But we've also seen hosts do things while recalling memories. So she could be doing something back in time and affecting this time. You know what I mean? Like we see Maeve slice at a throat of the Man in Black and accidentally slice what's her name? I was going to call her Tangerine. Yeah, Clementine.
I said Tangerine. Clementine.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? Like
Clementine too.
Their memories affect their present time. So she could be Breaking Bad, maybe even talking to Arnold, maybe even the Arnold moment where she kills him, or so we're led to believe. So there could be this big massacre in that town, and maybe the Man in Black walks in thinking, "Oh, it's just you," and then she's reliving this memory, and it just goes bad.
Yeah, she's going to definitely be connecting her past memory to her present, and I think that's going to be a big play between William and the Man in Black. I think it's going to be tragic for her, because she's going to realize that the man that she loved and remembers is actually this person who has tortured her.
Exactly.
But then Logan takes Dolores, and as a lesson to William, he stabs her and slices her, and we see robotics.
Yep. She's a flower face, man.
It is 30 years in the past. Huh?
She's one of those flower face ones.
What are you on about?
Her face opens up like one of the old ones. So she's old.
Old
tech.
Ew. Yeah, because it's 30 years ago. So there's a timeline spoiler.
Yeah.
And Dolores tells Logan there's beauty in this world. Arnold made it that way, but people like you keep spreading over it like a stain. Do you take anything from that, or do you just think it's just the way it is?
No, she's just tired of being an attraction.
Yeah, and then Logan tells her that, the world was made for me and not for you. And Dolores ends up cutting Logan and then escaping. And I was actually dying when Logan's like, "You're not different, you're fucking broken!" And then they ended up chasing her down. But then something really interesting happens. We see Dolores kind of running injured, and she falls. And then we hear "remember." Sounds very much like Bernard to me, or Arnold. And then we flash to present day, and we see Dolores on the ground. And we've seen this throughout the whole season, is that she's recapping her past. She relives these memories. So in present time, you literally would see Dolores running and falling alone.
Yeah.
And this is how she's recalling going to where she has to go. But this raises the question, what happens to past Dolores? Because we know that present Dolores is pursuing the old town. Is that what Williams Dolores is doing 30 years in the past?
Yeah, she was looking for whatever it was. That's what I mean. I think because it was buried, she didn't get to
That's
do
what
it.
I mean. Like, what's she going to do? She's, like, injured. She's bleeding out, but she probably won't die because Arnold could be watching her back, or she should be, like, operating on some backup code. I don't know, where blood loss doesn't affect her. But, like, the town is buried, so I don't understand. I don't know what she will do. I know what's going to happen in the in the broad sense, but at this point, you can't predict exactly what's going to happen because it's a finale. They're meant to shock you.
Well, here's the thing. He did bury it, but you could see the top of the steeple.
Can you enter
I
through
think
the
I'm
top?
saying the right thing. But the tower of the church, right? So I'm sure she could maybe somehow fit in there and climb down because unless he filled the entire church with dirt, then she could get into it still. It would just be from the top of that tower all the way in and then into the confessional, which then is an elevator downwards. But I don't know if we're going to see that though, because I feel like she did it. That's why they flashed to current timeline and then they flashed to 35 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like,
timeline.
the only thing that I know is that something is going to happen. Dolores is going to try and do something which would destroy the park, which was built in by Arnold, and William will end up stopping her and saving the park and keeping Ford in charge of the whole operation. I know that will happen.
See, I'm more inclined to feel like she'll die. William will see it and be like, "Oh," and then he'll rush back to staging ground or like Sweetwater or the main part where they came in to go see her, and then she's back to normal, and he's just like, what? Like, he just won't be able to reconcile in his mind.
That's going to be the really tragic part where he realizes that everything that they did was almost worth nothing because she won't remember him. But I'm saying there has to be a huge thing that happens. Like, the park was almost... An event happened, they kept saying 30 years ago, a big event happened, a collateral event. And that event involves Dolores, and even the Man in Black told Ford that, I saved the park 30 years ago. Charlotte said that he allowed Ford to keep his job. So something really important happened, and he stopped her, and then he went back to Sweetwater, and then I think that happened, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you're thinking? So you're thinking something pivotal happens. Maybe she's about to escape.
I can't possibly predict.
It's hard. It's a hard one, but I don't think we're gonna see too much. Well, I don't know. I was thinking that she could climb into that area again, right? Because again, it's only 5 years after Arnold is supposedly dead. So who knows what stage the park is in, or where Arnold's evolution is, wherever he might be, or whatever he is at this point, right? So if she breaks in and finds something running that's got Arnold's consciousness in it, I'm still kind of holding out for that. And then he ends up like opening like Jurassic Park moment, shutting down the electricity to the gates where all these things could be free. And in a last ditch panic moment, they have to shut down everything, and it ruins the story for everybody. And then everyone has to be pulled out, and then it's a big, huge press thing, and it's just something that they have to. It would be major fallout moment, but I don't think it's. They would have talked about it like there was a massive shootout and guests were dying and stuff like that. It doesn't seem that bad, because I don't think they'd be able to bounce back from something as bad as that. Maybe just one guest dies.
But I differ with the Arnold opinion just by, I think what's left of Arnold is just the core code that he left behind, and I think Bernard. I think those are what is left of Arnold. The maze is what's left of Arnold. The thoughts that go into the host's minds are left of Arnold.
Like his legacy and his ideology is left in the program.
His legacy and the thoughts he left behind, and that core code, which is pretty much core values of Arnold, is what stays. But I don't think that there's a Arnold like fucking computer.
Yeah, but I'm trying to resolve why someone's always speaking to them, and we know by the last episode's name that it's something to do with the two mind theory. Yeah. Right. So I'm still thinking that It's the code, but he's in the code in a sense. His will is programmed into them no matter what sort of updates they do to them.
Yeah, exactly. And then Maeve, I guess, in a way, like what we said earlier, she's also pursuing the maze, which is pursuing consciousness. Or already is conscious and sentient.
Yeah, it seems like she's pursuing freedom now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. She approaches Hector to try and recruit him to help her escape. Pretty much, she talks to him and says that everyone's going to end up shooting each other and there's nothing in the safe, and she ends up showing him, and she followed the same approach as she did with Bernard, which I liked, which is, I will give you the decision, but I want you to make the choice because I don't want to control you like how the humans do.
Yeah.
And they end up going in a tent, having sex, and burning it down.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Hot
there
sex.
is hot sex, yes. And, you know, there is a lot to that. They could have wanted to get really fucked up, so it takes a while to repair them. Possibly. I personally don't think that right now it's a rebuild to remove the explosive from their spine unless they talk to Felix beforehand.
Yeah, like skin removal. I think someone commented something to that effect. I thought about it because like they would probably have to go to a higher level of maintenance worker, right? Not just like a Felix or what's his name, Sylvester. They would have to go down to like cosmetic, right? Where maybe the tools are that they need to remove the proper parts. But it's interesting because do we know if Hector is like a flesh and blood or he's an OG?
I think most of the hosts we see now are updated to be organic.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering if Maeve was still an old school one.
No, I don't think so. I think they're all been re-updated to organic. They've been transferred into a new body. If you're running a park, you don't have half of your assets be robotic. It takes away the immersion. All the hosts, I believe, are organic.
No, I guess that's for another conversation. But either way, they would need she would need her like skin mostly. Right, and maybe they do a full body rebuild.
They could.
Or at least they get them into the area where a full body rebuild would happen, and then boom, Felix meets them down there and says, I got the tools here, boom, 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 you can do it yourself because you're super genius now.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, she says before this, she wants to break into hell and rob the gods blind. And the key word there is rob.
Yeah.
So she wants to steal something from the people, the owners of Westworld, and I think that's just their property, which is hosts. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of changes her motive. She was very self-centered. She just wanted to save herself, but it seems now she's really becoming a revolutionarian? Revolution? I can't find the word, whatever.
Revolutionary.
Revolutionary. She's recruiting people, but she could force them, but she's choosing not to, which shows that she does care in a sense. If she cared just about herself, she would control them.
Mm-hmm.
But I find her kind of negotiating with them and allowing them to make their own decisions just shows that she's in it more than just herself.
Well, it's very Arnold-like. Now we get to see a little bit of what Arnold is in this episode. And it's only short clips, and we sort of piece the other puzzle pieces together about how he was. And he seems like he's exactly like this. He wants to get these things to come to conclusions on their own. He doesn't want to force them. He doesn't want to program them past a certain point. He wants them to figure it out on their own. And that's my theory for the whole maze. And she has come to this conclusion on her own. Like, hey, I'm not going to force you. I can force you with a flick of my finger now. But I don't want you to do it that way. I want you to come to the realization on your own. And she's willing to be infinitely patient while all those people shoot themselves. And he opens the safe. Like, she could have just told him that. But she needs to sort of break their code that way. Organically, in a way.
Yeah. And what's one more really interesting thing is Hector is actually remembering. He remembered the last time they made out on the safe. Which just shows his approach to sentience because he's remembering a past life, which he shouldn't remember.
Exactly.
But then we go back to Logan, and he's trying to make up with William. And I actually kind of empathize with Logan in this scene, even though he's kind of a dick.
He's a bitch boy.
Because he's saying, like, look, William, like, she actually was never alive in the first place. Because, like, William's asking if she's alive. And it's like, look, like, she never was. And it's kind of like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
But then Will kind of says, like, oh, I was out of line. And then they end up hugging and forgiving each other. And when we watched this, we knew that Will was definitely just gritting his teeth. He's doing what he has to do to get what he wants.
Yeah.
He's taking a note from Logan on how to play the game. But then we go to poor Teddy. Angela wakes him up and welcomes Teddy back. And Teddy asks where Wyatt is, and she says that Wyatt is actually yet to return. And she tells him that he will find him where he saw him last. There are two options here that I think are equally as likely. Wyatt is either Teddy or Wyatt is either Dolores.
Okay. Take me down that path.
And you're more leaning towards Teddy's Wyatt, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, she says she will find him where he saw him last. Well, where did he see him? He saw him in the old town.
Yeah.
And that is where Dolores is right now. And it's Wyatt's whole backstory. He went missing out on maneuvers. Dolores would go missing out on maneuvers because her maneuver is to find Arnold.
Yeah.
And he came back with strange ideas. What's that strange idea? Sentience. Freedom. Ideas that only Arnold could give her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what he's allowed to be shown is what kind of mixes it up. Because we don't know. Wyatt could actually be Dolores because Ford could have fed him false information, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And there actually hasn't been a character that has been created in Wyatt's likeness yet. Or, like, so we think.
Yeah, we've only seen that flashback, which we know he's capable of manipulating.
Yeah, exactly. But then, we see the flashback of Wyatt and Teddy killing a bunch of people. And Teddy was saying that Wyatt said that he needed him. And he said it was like the devil took control over him.
Which is very reminiscent of Maeve being able to just whisper what she wants people to do.
That was exactly what I was going to say. A strong in mid-rights, like over control. So I don't know, maybe Bernard could have given that to Dolores. I don't know, I just find it very interesting. And this, like we've been saying for a while, this origin story of Teddy is rooted in truth. But Ford picked and chose what he wanted and left certain things out from Teddy. And then he's kind of rediscovering that truth.
No, I like that. I actually like that. If Dolores is Wyatt, that would be really dope. Because we see the scene where Teddy figures it out that he's like, oh shit. And we see him in his like martial outfit. And he was blasting people, but we only saw it from his perspective walking down the street towards the camera. Whereas when he looks at Wyatt, Wyatt's walking sort of directionally to 8 o'clock from his perspective. So they're meeting in like town center. So it could be the scene where right before she blows her brains out that she's shooting everybody in that little staging ground.
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I have a lot to say in the future about her putting the gun to her head. But yeah, to me it does make a lot of sense. A lot of Wyatt's backstory does align with Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that Wyatt was saving land for something that was meant to come. Dolores is saving, like, that location in a sense, waiting for Arnold.
Yeah.
And waiting for something that doesn't exist. And you can imagine from Teddy's perspective, that's, like, really strange. So to me, that does add up. But then what's interesting is when we see this scene of Teddy and Wyatt shooting people, we see a hand starting to turn music. For me, this is either Ford or Bernard, but the hand is not brown, so it's Ford.
Yeah.
Arnold was the one who invented this music as a back escape to further control these hosts, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford is using it, and he uses this music to control them. We see it with Clementine later in the episode. But what's really key in this scene is that the music stopped Teddy. Teddy stared at Wyatt in like disbelief, but it didn't stop Wyatt from killing the general and killing him. And I think that shows, it could show sentience because they're uncontrollable. And that could be Dolores. Like we see Dolores, imagine seeing a scene where we see Dolores shoot the general, which could be Arnold. Shoot Teddy, and then put the gun to her head.
Yeah.
Because her cornerstone emotion has been lost and she's reached true sentience, which is what I've been saying forever. Them killing themselves is them reaching true sentience. Because killing yourself is an emotional experience. It's not logical. It's something that you have to experience such trauma, you have to kill yourself. And we learn this later with Maeve in this episode. So I think that it's like Maeve in the past, we see something so traumatic where she's reached true sentience and the music can't control her.
Yeah, because I looked up the name of this episode, The Well-Tempered Cavalier. That's like Johann Sebastian Bach, famous composer. And it was sort of like these, I can't really explain it because I don't know music too well, especially like classical stuff. But it's like these sets, almost like coding for musicians is the way I take it. I'm probably butchering this. But it's a set of basic scales that allows for more complex music is the way I take away from it, which is really cool because if music is the cue, then music is the most basic form of their coding. So it's almost like it's like the primal instincts of these hosts.
And I immediately think of the piano and those paper lines on the piano.
Yeah, those are like a self-playing piano. But there's also something interesting about the piano because there's that guy that's in Ford's office.
Yeah, exactly. I got nervous this episode when Ford snuck into the office because I thought he was going to play the piano and control Ford.
Yeah, that would have been crazy.
Or sorry, control Bernard.
Yeah.
But then after that, Angela continues to talk to Teddy and says, are you sure you think that's how it happened? This is where I get a little bit confused. She asks him if he remembered, and then Teddy actually flashes to himself, and he's killing everyone.
Yeah.
And then he executes Angela. So for me, it's I don't know. It's between those two thoughts.
Well, maybe it's as easy as this. That day, Arnold had reached a certain level with Dolores, and she broke free of her code, and it just unleashed this chain reaction amongst all the hosts at that time, and they just started killing each other like the Purge. And that was this big major event, and as the dust settled, Arnold was dead.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of a simple solution, but it was like, oh my god, like he would help to destroy this place, right? Because these things wouldn't be fit to be attractions, and it would set the stage for this park to never exploit these robots. And I don't know if he intended for them to break free in this ensuing anarchy that happened, but who knows?
Yeah, and it was a testing ground too, so it could be as simple as, they programmed them to test that out, but I think there was some underlying sentience there put in there by Arnold, so I don't know. But then she pretty much told Teddy that this time we're going to be fighting with you, and when Wyatt returns, you're going to be by his side, by the city that's swallowed by sand. Which to me, right when I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's the buried town, the old town that has been dug up.
Yeah.
And the man in black looks amused. And, she says that Teddy isn't ready, so she kills him. So I find it interesting how the host knows that by killing him, it's almost helping him to achieve the final goal.
Yeah.
It's like, is Ford adding a storyline that's like very self-aware? Like, it's very confusing.
I think he's adding a storyline that walks that line so that his intentions is that it could cover the tracks of sentience by keeping in line with this massacre story. But I don't think he intended that these things would break this bad. Pardon using that term 100 times every episode, but it seems like Teddy is coming through because of his experiences with the Men in Black, who is the antagonist of Ford in this case, because he wants them to realize what's going on here, right?
Yeah, and since she said that he's not ready in this life, I think we're actually going to see next episode that he is ready, or he's going to be getting flashbacks to his past even more because of this reset.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we see an event happen in Sweetwater. Like, you know how they relive their experiences? What if Teddy, the big drama, in episode 10, in the present time, is Teddy doing what happened in the old town in Sweetwater?
Yeah, like he just goes back shooting everybody?
He relives the memory, and in doing so, he ends up killing everybody in Sweetwater. And then he may relive the memory. We get another side of it. We may see Wyatt, or if Wyatt is Dolores, we'll see Dolores.
Yeah, because now I'm wondering if she just wanted Teddy back to being a mass murderer, and she needs to corrupt him more and more. It's weird, man. It's a weird thing for Ford to do. Definitely, that's why it's hard to resolve. Because it's like, why would you get him to go that close?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I still feel like he's trying to find the answer to why these things are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like there's some underlying sentience there that Ford is unaware of, but I'm honestly not sure. But then Angela goes to the Man in Black and tells him that the maze actually isn't for him, which we've had the conversation many times. Just go back to our other analysis videos. It's for the host to achieve consciousness.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. And she says, if you like games so much, why don't you try one of ours? They knock him out, and then they put a rope around his neck and tie him to a horse.
Yeah.
So the Man in Black pretty much barely escapes from that, and then he talks to Charlotte, and she wants to push Ford out. And she wants the Man in Black's vote. So obviously this shows that he is very high up, and he's so high up, he's pretty much a board of director.
Yeah, he's on the board.
Well, he's on the board. Yeah, he is a board of director, and he can vote Ford out.
Which he agrees to.
Does he agree to? He pretty much says that
he's not.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't care. I just want to stay with my story. I'm not following Ford's stories right now. I'm following Arnold's. So do what you want.
Yeah. He's totally disconnected from the outside world.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. Yeah.
Like going on to Stubbs, Ashley. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna call him Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley finds out that there is a signal from Elsie in Sector 17, so he decides to go check it out. Turns out that his phone doesn't work in Sector 17.
Conveniently.
And he gets captured conveniently, and he gets captured by natives. Couldn't tell you what's going to happen to him.
Can I just draw attention that this whole fucking place is electronics, and in this day and age that they live in where they can create life, they still get shitty cell phone signal? Come on.
It's an EMP.
Yeah, he's totally been set up there. It's not like he's done. Or
No, it's an EMP, though. Ford put a jammer in there. That's the whole thing. You think that they seriously, like, it's by chance that they have bad cell phone reception by Sector 17?
No, but, like, why would they even have that? Why would they even have connecting not recognized? You know what I mean? Like, they shouldn't even have that error in a place like this.
He's jamming it, man.
Nah.
What do you mean, nah? He has, like, a hidden, like, thing where he's printing hosts. I'm pretty sure
I
he
get
jams
it. It serves the story because we can relate to someone having bad signal. But in a world like this, I'm just being very nitpicky. Why the fuck would they even have bad signal at all?
How are you not seeing this? It's not the matter of signal. It's the matter that his device is being jammed.
Yeah, but then how the fuck did he get the signal from Elsie's phone? It's all like...
Oh, see, that's the question then. Maybe Ford wanted him to see that because he had a conversation with Bernard where he seemed to be aware that Teresa was with Bernard. So maybe it was on purpose.
Yes. So it's just loose ends
that they found that. Exactly.
Man, I don't know. Ford is racking up quite the body count. But I guess he can fill that void, right?
Yeah.
If he replaces people? Like, we never see that, though. We haven't seen a replacement. Even with Bernard being replaced. Or Arnold being replaced with Bernard. It's not really a replacement in a sense because he didn't pretend like that was Arnold.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot that has to happen.
My God.
But then Logan wakes up to this massacre and he finds William waiting for him, just like everyone. William wasn't conservative at all.
No.
He just
No
decimated everybody.
No mercy.
And, what's important here is that William knows how to play the game now. He learned from Logan. He knows that to get what he wants, he has to do these things. And he did get what he wanted. He killed everyone, and he took Logan hostage to pursue Dolores.
Yep.
And he tells him not to call him Billy. That was the important part. But then we go back to Ford and Bernard, and Ford is actually trying to play music to Bernard and Clementine to try and, calm them down. And Bernard actually flashes back. He sees his son die, and then he gets a flashback of Maeve when she killed herself with her daughter. And Bernard was pretty much just questioning why she killed herself. He didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And Ford pretty much said that her cornerstone memory was overwritten, which is her daughter. So pretty much that she experienced so much trauma that she killed herself. Ford says that creatures go to such great lengths to protect themselves from pain. And Bernard says that humans do that, not hosts, which is exactly what I was saying. I feel like this is exactly what I've been saying. The killing of yourself is sentience because that's what humans do.
Mm-hmm. There's not many creatures that commit suicide.
Yeah, I feel like he just confirmed what I've been saying this whole time. And then Ford pretty much tells him not to worry about it. Don't get too much into it. And then Bernard ends up getting a little bit too much into it. He's like, she exhibited an empathetic response outside of what she's supposed to do. And then he tries to give an example, and then he ends up glitching out. So there's something that he's not supposed to know. And he ends up being affected in real time by hearing this answer in his memories. So what can't he know about these empathetic responses? What in his code isn't allowing him to discover a certain aspect of it?
I would say the maze.
Yeah.
You just made me, you sort of threw me off because I was thinking about the final scene with him. When talking about like suicides and stuff like that, it's almost like possible double meaning.
Yeah, like he was controlled to that time. I thought, yeah, that's very interesting.
So we're jumping ahead there a bit, but I don't know. I don't know what would be blocking him other than the he's just not there yet. Do you know what I mean? Like he hasn't pursued these thoughts more than this one time, right? This really bad week that Bernard's having, right? He hasn't been on the path of the maze for very long. Like look at Maeve. She struggled to figure it out. We see Dolores struggling beyond different timelines to figure it out. So the fact that he hasn't, there's something that he needs to achieve, and maybe it is in death. And that's why I'm not holding out to hope. I know for sure he's got to be in the next season. And even in the next episode, we might even see him alive again.
Yeah, and I think the key to approaching that level that Dolores and them are at, like obviously Bernard is being constantly controlled by Ford, so it's harder for him to achieve that level. But I think loops is also the key. Like Arnold knew that Ford would keep these people on loops, and loops is experience. And if you keep looping and keep looping, it ends up becoming a memory that they could actually recall back to, which we've seen.
Dude, I think you just nailed it. Teddy says to the Man in Black that the man in the maze is the guy that's died thousands of times.
Oh, shit.
Right? So maybe there is something in dying that resets them, and it sort of clears the fog out of this hidden code that's in them.
Yeah, man, it's all about the loop.
Right? So them looping constantly and constantly and constantly dying, constantly switching off, constantly being rebuilt. It's almost like sort of like the phoenix, right? It has to die and then come back from its ashes.
Yeah, and it's extremely fucking beneficial if they can literally relive these loops.
Exactly, because it's a gathering of all the knowledge that they've and experience that they've gained from these past traumatic experiences.
Exactly. So Bernard goes back into his own traumatic experiences. And then Bernard actually recalls a conversation that he had with Ford in episode 3 when the hosts were pretty much talking about Arnold, and he addressed that issue to Ford, and he didn't even know who Arnold was at that time. And pretty much Ford says that the human mind is a fraudulent corruption. So just like it's shit.
Yeah.
And he tells him that, Bernard, you were actually built to be better than humans, purer.
Which I think that's a mistake, because that's what Felix did. Felix told Maeve that she was better than humans, other than this one thing. And now she's on a relentless pursuit to get that one thing back from them.
Yeah, probably. But then what's important in this scene is Bernard actually discovers that his son is the cornerstone. And I think it's really important to look at, Ford gives all of these hosts, and even, well, it was Arnold's idea, that a cornerstone that is darker makes them more human.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes on to suffering.
Yeah.
Like the cause of suffering by the Man in Black to Dolores and all these different things makes them more human.
I think it's a combination, 50% suffering, 50% loved ones.
Oh, I think love is extremely important too. And yeah, with Bernard, that combination is really key. But then you have to ask yourself, with all these different hosts, like, what is their cornerstone? So I'm gonna talk about later about Dolores' cornerstone. I think it's really interesting. But he demands to be put back in to meet Arnold, because he's pretty much been enslaved to his cornerstone his whole life. And he relives the death of his son. He ends up freezing everybody, which shows that he's kind of coming to terms with this being a memory. And he's finally in control, because Ford has been in control over him this whole time.
Yeah.
And he pretty much says that, Charlie, you're not my son.
Yeah, it was like an awful scene.
Yeah. And then he pretty much tells him that, we need to move on. I have to move on from you. You're holding me back. And it was like a very nice emotional scene. And Ford tells him to open his eyes. And we end up seeing Bernard created. And we see Ford pretty much choose to call him Bernard, because it wouldn't be right to rename him Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Bernard in the picture of the three amigos, with Ford and his father and Bernard.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, while this is all happening, the conversation, all of this stuff, we're seeing Dolores. Dolores makes it to the town. This is in the present. Ford dug up this town. And right now, it's empty. So who knows? He may be filling it later. I'm not sure. And she walks into town. She finds the church. We hear Bernard or Arnold say, remember. Well, it is Arnold. And then all of a sudden, she flashes all the way back in the past. And she walks into the church. All the people are there. She ends up going underground to go visit Arnold. And we end up seeing the present time office space, and it's just destroyed with a bunch of dead people. And then as she's walking through the hallway, we get a glimpse of the past, and that is young Ford getting pissed off at Arnold about just hosts and how they should be treated and stuff.
Yeah.
And we see a conversation between Dolores and Arnold, and she says that, she pursued the maze, but she didn't find happiness. She only found pain and terror.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, hey, she's pursued the maze many times.
Exactly.
The constant loop. Died 1,000 times. The man who died 1,000 times in the center of the maze. You loop and you loop and you loop, and you add so much pain and terror to pursue this maze. Eventually, they're going to become human.
Yeah. Better than human.
Yeah. So I think that's the loop. And Arnold says that he actually can't help her. And and Dolores actually remembers that she killed him.
Exactly. Him then making her come to the realization.
Yeah. And I don't know, I just thought it was really sad seeing her sitting alone. Just very sad.
Yeah.
And then she ends up leaving the place, which I don't know what she was planning on doing now that her whole maze plan is gone. But she hears somebody open the door and she gets excited. She says, William! And it ends up being the Man in Black.
Yep.
To me, this scene, I had to pull myself back and be like, okay, they didn't reveal that the Man in Black is William, but to me, this pretty much confirmed it.
Well, yeah, because William in the past is gonna come through whatever threshold she's in at that point.
I know.
It's gonna be a mimic scene.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the church, because the church is buried in that timeline, but something like that's going to happen.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. People see it, I guess, as she mistaken him for William. I see it as pretty much the same shit happened. And she knew that it was William behind those doors. But this time it wasn't. It was the Man in Black, which is William.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot coming up with them next episode. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it seems like this is like some revenge for the things that's happened in the past, from what I've seen.
Yeah. I just don't know, like, since Arnold's not there, I don't know where Dolores goes from here with the Man in Black. I'd be really interested to see, because yeah, I'm at the point now where in the finale you can't predict what's going to happen. Like, the whole point of the finale is the bomb drop. And we have all the theories that they've been dropping, but you can't predict the ending.
No. I don't know how they're wrapping this all up to leave us satisfied but hanging for however many years it will take them to do season 2.
Yeah, and there's so many plot threads going on now. I can't possibly say what is going to be finished this season. Like, even Abernathy, man. Like, Abernathy might not be this season. It may be set up for next season. Teddy might not be this season. It might be next season. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stories that could be halted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It depends what kind of ending we get.
What if it's like Charlotte talking to the board and saying, well, Ford, and then it goes back to show like all the bad things that he's done because they're trying to like kick him off the board kind of thing. And it's just her going through every single bad step that he's taken, and we get to see it sort of real time.
But how would she know that, though?
Just going back through the loop. Like, she would only see it surface where we would get to see the whole thing. Like, mention, that incident that happened 30 years ago that Ford was responsible for, right? And we had to have whoever Mr. Men in Black is come in and, like, you know what I mean? It's a way of her sort of building the case against Ford whilst we get to see the whole thing. Because to wrap up 3 timelines, to wrap up all these different stories, they sort of have to have some sort of narrator or shepherd through all these different things.
But I agree and disagree. I agree you need the narrator, but I think you picked the wrong narrator. I think Charlotte doesn't know half the things that Ford's done. And I think we're going to learn... This is going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow by Ford being forced to maybe push this information or something. And I'm convinced he's going to get killed next episode. Whether it is Dolores, whether it is Bernard. One of those 2.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to die, but I think there's going to be like kind of like a moment before.
Like if Bernard has to be the one that kills Ford if Ford dies, right?
Possibly. And, you know, I think the way they would do that scene is because of the constant loops, Bernard has constantly had this consciousness debate with Ford on the fact that I'm a host. This has been looped and looped over and over again. The fact that Bernard has asked over and over again, have you made me kill anyone else? And Ford continuously says no. It's that loop which allows him to approach the maze, and it allows him to become sentient and allows him to recall his past memories. So I think while Bernard is about to kill Ford, I think he's going to be flashing back to all of these things that Ford has done and he has been a part of.
Dude.
And then I think that is going to be the suffering that allows Bernard to pull the trigger.
Long shot theory. This is holding out hope. This is Hail Mary. This is 4th quarter, 1 second left.
Shoot.
Bernard broke bad enough to save Elsie and to save Ashley by capturing them, using the hosts, and in using himself to subdue them, to hide them away, to protect them from the things that are going on.
That would be interesting because they have established that he has continuously been breaking bad.
Yes. And like
so,
in the time that Ashley went missing, he was able to hack Clementine. He was able to corral this meeting with him in the ground, right? I'm holding out hope. I literally just came up with that right now.
But it's, like it would have to be like he choked out Elsie, but then he went through that loop again of him killing somebody else.
We didn't see him kill him. That's the only thing. Like I really think that we would see a scene with him killing him.
But the way it would work out is him strangling Elsie, him remembering him doing this in the past, him stopping because of his remembering of this. And then because he killed her, or Bernard lied about it, and then Ford would reboot him so he would forget that even happened, right? So present Bernard thinks that he actually killed Elsie, whereas past Bernard actually was self-aware and didn't kill Elsie.
No, and subdued her, maybe chokehold her, sleeper hold, put her away somewhere safe, and maybe we'll see a scene where he's explaining why he did that.
But then that being said, she would have been subdued for a pretty long time, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to play those timelines. Like how many days has passed since Elsie's been missing? It seems like only a day or two, though, from when they were talking about it.
Okay, but then we get an interesting scene with Bernard and Ford where Bernard gets really angry and he swears that he will finish Arnold's work. And he says that he will find all the sentient hosts and set them free. And this is what we've been saying, man. Find all the sentient, that's the key word, sentient hosts, and set them free.
Yeah.
And that was Arnold's vision.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ford just wanted control. And this is where Bernard realizes that he's had this conversation with Ford before. And it's what we've been talking about. It's that constant loop.
Yeah.
Because then every time he has this conversation and this realization, Ford rolls him back.
Yeah. Like, that's why Ford was so casual with this whole experience. He's just like, another one of these days.
But I think this one was just a notch higher.
Yeah, of course.
Because the ones usually are him like, oh, did you make me do this? Oh, no, Bernard. Like, it's like, it was very subtle, whereas this one, Bernard came in with a weapon.
Yeah.
It was escalated a little bit. But Ford ended up telling him that Bernard is more of a danger to the host than he is. And then Bernard actually orders Clementine to kill Ford.
Yeah.
But what we find interesting here is that she actually doesn't kill Ford, and we find out that he's been using the back code, the piano, the music, to kind of control her. And I thought this was genius from Ford's perspective, because he had control, but he wanted to truly see if a sentient Bernard wanted to be his partner.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to see if Bernard would actually pull the trigger, and he did. So I think that's enough for Ford, and that gives him enough to force a gun to Bernard's head and have him kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I thought this scene was so sad.
Oh, yeah, big time.
It felt so bad. And then while he was walking away, he's like, Robert, he like called him by his real name. And then Ford tells him to never put his faith in humanity. And, you know, he ended up saying Bernard and called him his good friend, which I'm sure, you know, they definitely are. Like, Ford actually has a huge respect for Bernard.
Yeah, which is weird because he makes the distinction with Dolores. No, I wouldn't say that at all. When she says, are we good friends or old friends? She's asked that twice in the season. And he says, I wouldn't say that at all.
Well, I think she's
Whereas
been
with
a pain in
him,
his ass.
Yeah, I know, but like there's something there because he says old friend, and there's something meaningful there. We still don't know what Dolores is. Do you think she's just a host, or do you think she was made in the image of someone? Very important.
She is Arnold's creation, and he put everything into Dolores to achieve what he wanted. All of his ideals that he couldn't express, he put into Dolores. And it's just been a giant pain in Ford's ass.
Well, we know she's key, though. She said she's not specifically, so we know she is a key, right? And we know if Ford really didn't want sentience running amok, then he would have destroyed her a long time ago. So she's very important.
Well, we go back to the loop thing. Like, she's the oldest bot in the park.
Yeah, but she's sentimentally locked with Ford because he would have just scrapped her a long time ago, peeled every little gear out of her, and figured out why she's so important.
But that says that Ford is emotionally locked to Arnold, which is emotionally locked to Bernard, which is emotionally locked to all of his creations.
Yeah, but more so, this might be that he can't have both ways. He's emotionally locked to Arnold, yeah, because he literally built puppet Arnold Bernard to work exactly how he wanted to do it, right? So that as much as it is sentimental, it's a little dark in that sense. Whereas he somehow cannot touch Dolores beyond a certain point, so much so that she's whispering to her past. So
Right.
it's almost like he said she's a walled garden, which is both technically relevant because it's something that he doesn't understand. There's something that he can't get out of her, but at the same time, it's important that he leave it alone because he doesn't know what effect it will have on the entire park.
Yeah, and it's continuously growing.
Right? So she still is the most important host for the upheaval of all these hosts and the I guess revolution of these hosts.
Exactly. And during this revolution that we'll probably see in episode 10 with Maeve is that Bernard is coming back. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
We've been saying that Maeve goes down to sub-level 83. I think it's a definite. That's where she's going to get her army, and I think she's going to stumble across Bernard.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, what?
I was going to say, like, we said that sort of in the reveal. Like, her main goal down there is to get everybody, but her main goal really is to get Clementine. She wants Clementine back.
Well, there's two sides to that. She said that she doesn't want to be loyal to anyone anymore because they're just fabricated stories to keep her there. But at the same time, we see her not just controlling these hosts, but allowing them to make their own decisions, which shows the other side to Maeve.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, definitely she's going for Clementine as well as the army.
That's the unfortunate thing about becoming human, though. She's not robot. As much as she is a robot, the human emotions take over, and she becomes sentimental.
Yeah.
Right? She knows that the little girl from her past, she can't get that back, so she's let go of that. But Clementine is something that she can attain. So she has to know, and that's sort of the human side of her shining through.
Right. And, you know, Bernard, either she's going to have time to repair him, which I don't know. But she could also control his code. Like, she can shut off the code that says after you lose X amount of blood, you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Actually, could they, though? Because he shot his head, and he's made out of organic tissue. So, probably not. That's probably bullshit, but I don't know. But he's coming back.
I don't know, because he was built way back when. And I know we don't talk, like, we haven't really discussed, and I don't know if we agree what if he's been upgraded to flesh and blood Bernard. Because if he shot his head, is it just like a fake brain that's in there with a small chip? Or would Ford shoot him in the part of the area, like the part of the brain that they use to drill up their nose? Right?
I think it's all organic now. Like, I think the screw up the nose before was destroying the robotic side of it, but I think now they just do it because they puncture the brain.
But then, like, how is Clementine still able to even do some motor function?
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Right, and they did it to Abernathy, right? Well, he was an old school robot.
Yeah, true. Okay.
That's what I mean. I really want to know, like, if they upgrade these things.
We know that there's some old ones in the park, but I think the majority is organic. But I don't know. But anyways, do you have anything else to add?
No, we sort of touched on it earlier. Do you think Bernard benefits from this suicide thing, just like everybody else that's blown their brains out or stabbed themselves in the neck?
I think him killing himself wasn't his own choice, so it wasn't him reaching true sentience. Actually, well, even though he was self-aware of what he was.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's almost like it could have been another Ford slip. Like, yeah, kill yourself, Bernard, because I need you to do that for my motives. Whereas, oh shit, I'm sentient. You just made me kill myself, and I get whatever benefit I get from doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
It was like a chess move, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like, the step of true sentience is to kill yourself, because that's the true human emotion, and Ford forced Bernard to do that.
Yeah. Whereas
I don't know.
Yeah, that's again. It is a really good chess game between them in this episode.
It's an interesting idea, but like, I'm super excited for episode 10. I know the base theories, but there's certain things like we can't predict the ending.
No.
So I'll be excited to see what happens, and I'll be excited to see what that means for the next season.
I'm excited to see the reaction in the comments, like how this thing all gets wrapped up. That's what I'm most anxious for. As everyone's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it," or man, we had it possibly so wrong that I'm anxious to find out, or whether we had it dead on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But until then, we're going to be releasing a breakdown video of episode 10. And then you can see us with our reaction and review for episode 10. So until then, see you guys later.
See ya.